this computer. Okay.
Great.
Welcome everyone to our fall series of our distance learning webinars. My name is Ann Nutter-Kaufman. I'm a manager within our teacher quality department here at the NEA. And we are excited to offer this particular webinar. There have been lots of questions in August about early learning online and what the heck that looks like and what do you do with that. And so this webinar is in direct response to those requests and questions from members. So know that we are being responsive as best we can in the times that we are in. A couple of housekeeping things. We are recording, so you will be able to download and look at it later. We'll give information about that as we go. You are eligible to receive, we can give you a certificate that you can then turn in to your respective state agencies to receive whatever kind of credit it is you do with your state. And then also we do have closed captioning tonight. If you want to see the subtitles, then you should go ahead and look at the bottom, and there should be a button that you can press to do that. And I am going to pass it to our illustrious executive board member, Christine Sampson-Clark. Christine?
Ooh, illustrious. Okay.
Illustrious.
Good evening from New Jersey. I am Christine Sampson-Clark, member of the NEA Executive Committee, and I am all so excited that so many of you have joined us today to help build your repertoire of skills so that we can continue to build quality instructional practices to our students. I would like to begin this evening acknowledging that we meet on the traditional lands served by Native people all throughout. I am here in Trenton, New Jersey, where the Lenape people first inhabited these lands. Notable Lenape people include Richard C. Adams, 1864 to 1921, a Lenape author of collections of traditional narratives and a legal advocate for the Lenape in Washington, D.C. And Black Beaver, 1806 to 1880, a trapper, trader, and scout who was the first inductee into the American Indian Hall of Fame. We honor America's first people and all elders, past, present, and emerging, and we are called on to learn and share our knowledge about the tribal history, culture, and contributions that have been suppressed in telling the story of America. Like you, I am a participant in this webinar to learn more about best instructional practices. Although no two classrooms are alike, and there is no magic pill to meet the needs of all of our students, we can use this space to learn from our colleagues. You can also find other ideas at www.educatingthroughcrisis.org. Tonight, like our other webinars, we are highlighting our members who are or have become experts in this new educational environment of remote or hybrid instruction. I would also like to thank our experienced EdTech members and staff who will help us in our own remote learning environment this evening. At the end of this session, before you click off, there will be a short survey evaluation form to help us identify other topics you think would benefit us in this journey or how we can improve on what we have offered here this evening. Okay, that's it for me right now. I am going to sit back and soak in this information just as I hope you will too. And I turn it back over to Leslie and Kelsey, who are so awesome. I can't wait.
Well, hello, everyone. We just wanted to give you a little bit of information. If you are just joining us in the chat, you will see the link if you are a Google user, and then you'll also see a link if you are a non-Google user, so that you can have this slide deck later on out after we have presented. Because this is a webinar, your camera and your microphone have been muted, but you should please put your questions in the Q&A box. If it's something that's like a comment or a high five, you can put that into the chat, but any questions should really go into the Q&A. And we have some wonderful colleagues that are going to be manning the Q&A, and so they'll get be able to answer questions because we won't be able to see them. So they'll be able to answer your questions. And if they haven't answered them at the end of the presentation, we'll be more than happy to talk about those questions. And we'll try to respond to questions throughout if we happen to notice anything like that.
Great. Then we also have, if you're a Twitter person like myself, feel free to tweet out using our NEA Ed Practice hashtag, tag NEA Today. I already tweeted that out right before I got on, and I already saw a couple of our moderators were favoriting it. So if you're a Twitter person as well, feel free to use those hashtags. All right, and then hi everyone, my name is Kelsey Lafferty, and here is my Twitter handle if you want to follow me, or feel free to email both myself or Leslie at any point. I currently now teach 2nd grade. I have joined the lower L team. I taught 5th grade for 5 years before. So this is my 6th year in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I've also taught in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and in Japan when I was in college at Michigan. I love EdTech, and I love learning through other colleagues like Leslie's taught me so much. So I hope to learn from you tonight through your high fives in the chat or any suggestions you have. So thanks for having us.
And I am Leslie, and you'll see my email as I am not on Twitter. I'm a mom.
We'll get her there. We'll get her.
I'm a mom of 3, so my priorities are the baseball field right now. But you can hashtag NEA practice on any of the platforms. If you find something that you really like, and you think is outstanding, then make sure that you share it with other people. I myself have been teaching kindergarten for quite some time, over 15 years actually, and this work that we're going to be talking about tonight is something near and dear to my heart. We've been helping students become tech literate for the past 6 or so years, and I just want everyone that is here to know that it is very possible, one step at a time, one thing at a time, that they can do it.
You have an unofficial Twitter handle from Chris.
Thank you. All right, so we are going to do a little bit of a connection, and then after we'll talk about the EEE framework. We'll talk about how you can manage your expectations, and then what it looks like to provide consistency in the classroom and also at home. And then we'll talk about some of our favorite tools, and we'll have time for questions and answers. All right, so the first check-in in the chat, if you could just put a color of how you feel or where your students are on this spectrum. So one-to-one devices being red, and then all the way on the other end, if you have few to no devices, that's like a fuchsia or a pink. And so if you could just put that in the chat so that we can see. I'm assuming, yeah. I'm assuming lots are probably closer to the one-to-one.
Well, I used to be blue to purple until this fall, and now we're red.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were kind of similar, Leslie.
Yeah, we have been blue. I would say blue to purple for the entire time, with options to become red if we really needed it, but you know, we really didn't need it. But yeah, that was definitely the case, but now we're all red. So we're going to show you how you can make this work no matter what color you are on the spectrum. We have some tips for you know, grouping things to do at individual times, and then we have some tips for if everyone needs to be doing something at the exact same time. And then we also want to do a little bit of a check-in to see how comfortable you feel with distance learning. I mean, when you think about the elephant, and I think the book is with the mice, and they're all looking at a different perspective, and they can only see from their perspective. And we're thinking about, oh, just everything all at once. and you just have to take a little bit, a slice at a time to eat that whole elephant, right? So where would you feel on this continuum with how you could have your face-to-face or distance learning and technology integration? Are you feeling little to no comfort or experience, that's down at the 1? Or are you open, confident, willing to try, all the way down at the 5?
Ooh, I like that people actually put the emoji in there too.
Yeah.
No matter where you are on the spectrum, there should be some takeaways that can help you out.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
shout out to the people. I forgot to change mine. I always put my preferred pronouns there too, but I saw a couple people did that. That's a great practice to do as well. For your name.
I'm very happy to see that many of us here tonight are a little comfortable to very comfortable trying some new things for our young learners. It is going to, we hope to reduce any anxiety that you might feel because these are young people. We are going to let you know we've done it and they do a great job.
Yes. All right. So we are moving on to the Framing Elementary Ed Tech. So this is just it explains what is called the Triple E framework. So this was created by an amazing researcher and professor at the University of Michigan, who I had both in my undergrad and my graduate program, named Liz Kolb. And she was really purposeful with her research about everything we do with technology with students should be either enhancing, extending, or engaging them in the learning. And it shouldn't just be used as just something that looks fun and flashy, and that really should be purposeful, and that we don't need to just do it on pencil and paper. So if you can just do it on pencil and paper and it's not extending, enhancing, or engaging, then it's probably better just on pencil and paper. She has a rubric that's hyperlinked in here as well. When I had her class, that every EdTech tool we used, we had to assess on a rubric to see if it was meaningful for us and our students. And it really taught me to look at technology through a different lens. And so I really recommend you to check her out. And several of the educators here tonight were just featured in her new book. And she's just an awesome EdTech person and a great follow on Twitter as well, if you're a tweeter. So just a quick run through of what we're talking about when we're saying EdTech in early childhood. So we always talk about a slow rollout when we're in person, slow rollout of manipulative, slow rollout of routines and rules. Same thing with technology. You want to do one device one tool at a time. You don't want to teach them all the tools at once, just like you don't teach them all the routines at once when we're in school in person. We want to remove those barriers to learning. We're going to show you a lot of different examples tonight, how we remove a lot of barriers such as color coding, setting clear expectations, clear schedules and screenshots. It has to be consistent, just like I was saying up above with those barriers. We want visuals. Just looking at the visuals Leslie's provided through her summer school principalship and others, we really want it to be clear and concise with our directions, with lots and lots of modeling. So I just love this this meme, and Ellen loves this meme too. So every time, and Leslie, every time one of us is together, the meme happens to be featured. I think Chris Thomas loves it too. So I know that a lot of families and parents, I know my mom, when I talk about edu-speak with my dad, who's also an educator, she feels like we're talking in this foreign language about the Zabblezood and the Zork and this app and then this IEP, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So we don't want our students and families to be feeling how my mom feels when we talk about education. So we want to be really patient. Like I was telling people when they came in, I told my students today I was really frustrated, and they all said it's a-okay. It's okay to let them know we're feeling frustrated when things don't go as planned, but we're being flexible. We also know that students will find unexpected ways to use the tools that we give them. So beware. So always try to think a step ahead, or beware that something you might not have known, something that they've found out. Always model too. Sorry, Leslie.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
And we always want to model from the student perspective. So that's what I'm dealing with right now too, of they're using a Chromebook and not everything looks the same from the student view. So that will really save you in the long run. And then if you have those leaders that can teach other people, that's so important.
I was going to say, if you're a Zoom user, you might have found out that your children have already discovered how to annotate and how to draw on your screen and how to get things going. And we haven't even taught them yet. That's the wonderful thing about kids. They're still ready to discover at every turn. And so if we give them the tools and if we give them a little bit of guidance, they can do some amazing things just with their own discovery and a little bit of our guidance.
Absolutely.
All right. And so now we're going to talk about managing their expectations.
So this is an example of something that we have this spectrum on many different slides of where they can be independent, doing this on their own. These are those two words that we hear all the time, synchronous and asynchronous. And so that's the asynchronous time, they can do it on their own, or the dependent live synchronous. And we're going to show you a mix of both of those, an even mix as well tonight. So think about how we want to limit our hosting platforms and diversify your tools slowly over time. So this is just a quick video of showing how there's so many ways in just one tool in Seesaw that students can be creative and use their imagination. And so this is just one video. If students are using the drawing tool, they're able to click on that drawing tool, and just in one tool, they're able to add text and flip the text. And they're able to make colors and shapes and words that in different fonts, and they're able to record their voice. They're able to insert pictures, images. So this is just one example. If you teach them the drawing tool, they're able to discover 10 plus tools within that one tool. So that's just an example of how we want to start slow, because there's a lot to learn with just one thing, and then diversify over time.
And if you were teaching that one tool, which is the drawing tool, you would maybe only do one of those features at a time. We know that we showed you quite a few of them. No way would you release that all at one time. So that in itself could be over a week, over a month, especially for our little ones. We want them to get really good at what they're doing before they go into so many layers of different tools.
Yes, thank you, Leslie. So this is just an example also with our math tool, like the math template. Also, I found out those templates are like $12 each. So that's why we want to model it, set expectations, then pass out the tool, because we don't want them to snap it right in half because that was $12. Then we give directions, then they repeat it, then you build the tool. That's the same thing that we would use with those expensive math templates. Same thing with technology. So here's an example with Epic. If you use Epic Books, you model opening the app. Then we model logging in. Then I show them the main page and how to explore. Then we go open a book and check it out. And then the students can do it. Same thing as if you were in person with that little math template. You do that with the online tools too. And Ellen just put in the chat, check out Epic Books. If you don't use it, it's excellent and free for teachers.
And over the spring, they did make it a free resource for students as well. So when they were at home, they were able to be able to use it, depending on what, I'm trying to say what Clever is. What is Clever? It's not a learning platform, but what is it?
Oh, I'm blanking on the
I
word.
know.
I like to call it a hub. It's a portal, yeah. A hub
Okay,
or
so
a
depending
portal.
on what kind of portal or login or single sign on that you have for your district, that might be something that as your technology department might have that on already loaded into your devices, and the kids can automatically log on with the code that you give to them, and then it'll be easy peasy from there.
Yes. Excellent. And so we want to make this tools accessible for students by guiding our families who are supporting them at home. Whoever is supporting them, their caregivers. Just like, for example, with Epic, we want to give them some help pages or tutorials, take screenshots with instructions. If you found already made YouTube videos that they can watch, maybe you want to screencast or record something, or you can do a combination of those examples where some are more work for them, some are more work for you, but we also have to guide our families and caregivers for our students as well.
And I think that many of our younger, parents of younger children, I think that they are more visual. And so if you give them something that's visual for them to copy, I think that might be easier than for you to just talk to them maybe. So if you give them some icons and you give them some pictures to look at and some do this, now do this, step by step by step, that really helps them out, because this is their first time. You have to think about this being their first time. And so you really want to handhold, because by the time they get to first grade, trust me, they don't need the parents anymore, and the parents don't need you anymore. And so you've done your job. If you're a young fives or a kindergarten or even a preschool teacher, if you hold their hands now, then they won't need you in the future years.
And bless you all Y5 and K teachers. You're all superheroes. So like Leslie was just talking about, the golden egg that is Clever. It's so great. So if you have Clever, stick with Clever. That is your single sign-on application that your district has paid for, that all of your apps are in. So if you have Clever, stick with Clever. If you don't, there are some different ways on this slide that you can think about. So one of our amazing colleagues, Ellen, who's here tonight, created this poster with all the different codes on it, because she wasn't in a Clever school at the time. So she had her Epic code on there, her Seesaw QR code, her Raz Kids, etc. So she had all of it on one single sign-on page. You can also have QR codes. I always have this at school with their QR code and their name on the front and their passwords on the back if they need their email password. So that's another way that you could do at school or at home, because kids are going to need those nearby too. So think about, if you're a Clever school, stick with Clever. If you're not, there are some ways that you can have easy for students to get on as well.
And we will say, make sure you spend the big bucks for that laminating. Make sure you laminate it, because we know the kids are going to eat them, right? They're going to put them in their mouths. They're going to get them very soggy. So go ahead and spring for the good laminating paper so that it can be thick and it can last the entire year.
Yes, and print more than one and laminate more than one, because we know they're going to lose them. Yeah, packing tape too. And if you are virtual at home and your kids don't have their Seesaw badge, I just texted a parent it today, and you can actually hold your phone up and scan in if they have a picture of it nearby too. So they lost the badge or couldn't find it, so now they just hold up that phone. So that works as well. So just quickly, success is by discovery. So Leslie was saying we want kids to discover, or they are discovering on their own, whether we want them to or not. We want them to have natural discovery. in shared discourse. So today I introduced Jamboard, which is a whiteboard, because our district turned off the whiteboard option for students and it's only accessible for teachers. So I was using a Jamboard, and once they got on, they were all drawing and scribbling everywhere and using the pointer tools. And they're like, what are we supposed to be doing? I'm like, exactly what you're doing right now, because I knew you'd be doing it anyway. So I allowed them to change the color and I allowed them to find the pointer. So when it was time to say, oh, now we're going to use this for our small group time, they got all that out of the way and it was really successful. So we want to allow that natural discovery through the tech tools, just like we would with math manipulatives, where maybe they build houses or build blocks as well.
Mm-hmm.
And here's an example, like we were talking about earlier with Seesaw, and I think someone put it in the chat earlier. These are different examples where students are given a variety of craft materials and they're able to show a plant and they're learning from a unit. So you're able to see that students are able to build those hands-on materials and come up with something fabulous that the EdTech tool enhances their learning with the paper, and then they're able to label the different tools. So you can just see a variety of ways students learn with one EdTech tool.
And the really good thing about this is that you have it for a long time, right? So as long as you have that class, you're going to have this on your, so this particular assignment was done on Seesaw. So you'll have it in your Seesaw account, and you don't have to worry about, oh, is it in the portfolio or not? This is their digital portfolio. So that's a really good thing. And this is great to talk about their growth over time, because you might pull an assignment from earlier in the year, and then at the end of the year, especially with writing, if you have your students show their writing, maybe even by taking a picture, it just shows how much they've grown over time.
Yeah, and you can use this as evidence as well for evaluations.
All right, so now we're going to move on to providing consistency, and this is where I think you really have to lay down the foundation for your ed tech. It's going to be the most important part of what you do, is just providing this consistency. So just like you would in your classroom, if you are face-to-face right now, then you want to have all of those interactive modeling moments. You still want to interactively model. If you're doing this virtually, then perhaps that might be something that you do in your small group time, because we're not exactly sure how many kids you have. If you have a whole class, and depending on what their age range is, you might want to have them in a small group when you talk about setting up different virtual things. So once you set your expectations, you want to make sure that you follow them through each time the same way every day. So no matter if you're at home or if you're at school, you're always going to follow these steps. And remember, we talked about those visuals. So I'm a big proponent of having those icons there, having some sort of a visual so that kids can remember, and then telling them how to link it so that they have that in their brain. And you just want to make sure that every time that you do this, you walk them through the steps until it becomes automatic for them. And I know for me, a lot of times I would point when a student would ask me how to do something, and I would just point, and then it would jog their memory, and they would remember how to do it on their own, because they remembered those steps and they could just look at those pictures.
Thanks, Leslie. I just said to feel free to put in the chat if you're face-to-face. The fabulous Bill Van Loo reminded me of my millennial, my abbreviations, F2F, hybrid or virtual. So Leslie and I are all virtual right now. So we'd love to hear if you are hybrid, face-to-face, or F2F if you want to be millennial like me, and then virtual. Ooh, virtual first 9 weeks. Okay, we got a lot of virtuals, a couple of hybrids. Julia's face-to-face. Awesome. So here's an example of the weekly schedule that I'm using for, this is for my virtual classroom. So I hope that it benefits my hybrid peeps out there, my face-to-face people as well. And is this bring up the new tab, Leslie?
It does bring up the new
Perfect.
tab. Yes, it is.
So this is how I am organizing myself on week 2 of virtual learning 2nd grade. I will have a disclaimer that it will probably not look exactly the same by week 5 or 6, as I am getting better as it goes on. But as you can see, the days are color coordinated, and those correspond to daily folders within Schoology. Then I also have icons. So the math icon is going to always be the same, the reading icon, the morning meeting icon, the recess icon. So it's all really clear for families when things are with times, when they have independent time, or when they need to be with me. They also have, like, social studies is always going to be the same. There's an independent person. And we have closing circles. So this is just something that I've created for my virtual learning, because I like to know with times how I'm going to be spending. And if you notice through our agenda, we cross things off and are done. So this is just a really clear way students are able to follow along with our schedule and reduce the amount of anxiety families and students might have through virtual learning.
And I just wanted to say that we are using the learning management system, the LMS of Schoology. And so all of our learning is going to occur through Schoology. And so when you heard Kelsey say Schoology, she's talking about our learning management system that we're using as a school district.
Yes.
All right. And so we also want to talk about routines. So in the classroom, I always had a job for my students to either pick up the, we had iPads in our classroom, so to pick up the iPads and put them back into the charging dock, or I also was able to assign what I call my headphone experts. And so these were kids who knew how to take the headphones out without getting the small little silver parts stuck inside. They knew how to take it out, and they knew how to wrap the headphones and put them into a sandwich bag, because we had a horrible LICE problem.
Us too.
So we would put them in a storage bag just to make sure that we didn't have any problems with people that were sharing. And so we were able to create a job for the students. And I shared this, I think, the last time. The kids absolutely love, if you can go out and if you can go and find some of those Home Depot like not jackets, but you know, like the ones that you wear, the vest, the ones that you're a deer hunter or whatever. If you can go and find those little ones, they usually have them like in Toys R Us isn't around anymore, but they usually have those. And just get a couple of those for the kids and make them the designated leader or the designated one in charge of that. They really take that as serious. And I was always able to send my students to someone who had that skill, because then that way I wouldn't have to stop whatever I'm doing in front of me in some sort of a small group. They could go to the expert, and they knew who the experts were. So I highly encourage you, especially if you're face-to-face, to designate some students that have really proven themselves to be able to take care of the technology, to either be able to put them away or either be able to pull them out, or whatever it is that you need for them to do as every single day as a routine. Teaching those kids, and trust me, they will succeed, or they will rise to the occasion if that's something that you put into them. So yeah, those vests, I'm telling you, that really sets them off. Even if you have to get something and then put reflective tape on it because you can't find it, you'll be really happy that you did.
I know when you said that last time we presented together, I just loved the idea of vests. And someone also said they have Ask Me badges, but thanks, Stacy, for that. That's a good idea too. And then maybe people who are face-to-face can help out with Sharon. She's wondering just some social distancing tips. So feel free to give her some tips if you're face-to-face right now, and can help her out with that. One thing I've learned with all my tech is I was graced with Chromebooks in my classroom, which I love Chromebooks, but they were 3 different types of Chromebooks with different chargers. So they were different, versions of the Chromebook. So my students all were like, oh, the Chromebooks go in here. Oh no, those have different charging ports. So I color coded with electrical tape the charger and the computer to make sure that blue went with blue. And if you have, students who need different accessibility, you could do stars or hearts or something else as well. Just to make sure that if you are also graced with different Chromebooks, that they make sure they get charged correctly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Favorite tool time.
All right, cool.
All right. We're
ahead of the curve today. How did that happen? All right. All right, so some of our favorite tools, I think you have heard us talk about Seesaw a lot. It's because we love it. We're able to see everything that our students are learning. It is such a great way for us to get some real-time formative assessments of our students' learning. And it's a great way to communicate with students and families. It has so many features. If you have students that already know how to read, you can type your answer to them. If you still have those who are learning and emerging readers, then you are able to speak to them whatever it is that you want to respond. And so it really just helps, for that communication and quick communication. During the spring, I used it all the time to communicate with families, and so it was just my go-to. It will take you some time, and it will take you a routine for how you would like to respond, because you could get 400 responses from people, but you would like to make sure you filter that so that everything isn't coming in at one time. And so you might have days when certain people turn in certain things, or you might have days when you respond and report back to certain families. But we really love Seesaw. And then Kelsey, did you want to talk about any of your favorites?
Yeah. Okay. So the other 3, I think Ellen just put in the chat. So Better Lesson, OER, Common Sense Education, they all have lessons that are created for teachers by teachers. So I always tell people, let's work smarter, not harder, people. No reason to reinvent the wheel. Many hands make light work. I love, all the catchphrases, but it's so helpful if Leslie created an awesome Seesaw activity and I'm doing the same thing, it's better to share. And all 4 of these are ways that we can share our expertise or find others' expertise as well. So Anne just put in the chat, NEA did sponsor Better Lessons. So check that out. That is an NEA sponsored partnership. And you can also become a Seesaw ambassador. It's a great way to learn about Seesaw. So we love these 4 sites. Please check them out using the links in the chat.
They're teacher supported, so we want to make sure we let you know about those. Absolutely.
So Leslie talked a little earlier about the LMS, the Learning Management System. So you and your district may choose for you, or you may get to choose how you're going to communicate with families, share events, activities, behavior, and more. So right now we're using Schoology, and so that's our main way of posting assignments and schedules and more. Previously, I've used Google Classroom, email, I've had my own Weebly website, I've used different behavior systems on there. So you need to find whatever works for you or your district. And remember, Clever is, if you use Clever to hub your websites, no need to put them in another place too, because students will always know, go right to Clever. If you don't have Clever, come up with a way where you can house all those links, whether it's like a hub of a bunch of links that students are going to need to know, whether you have a one-stop shop for resources. So think about if you have a class website where you can have students go each time that they're going to have to go to their math and their reading and whatever sites that you're going to need them to use.
And these are the probably most popular learning management systems. And I know that I have used Seesaw and Blooms, but I have not used Class Dojo, and they all have very similar features. You can do private messaging on student creation tool, just only on Seesaw and Blooms. I'm sorry, Seesaw and Dojo. But I almost think that there was some features that did allow students to create videos on Bloom. So although it's not like the drawing tool, they are able to create some videos in Blooms. They're just not able to do as many features as Seesaw and Dojo. And then feedback option for all of them, a social element definitely for all of them. And then a behavioral system on Dojo and Blooms. But I haven't used the behavioral system at any times that I've been teaching, and I haven't communicated it this way through Blooms, but others might have more to say about that part of it.
And I've used, there's some Dojo lovers in the chat. I used Dojo a few years ago, but then recently I used Seesaw, and we just set goals as like our behavior system where they were sent to families. So there are ways, workarounds where you could have goal setting within Seesaw that you can use as like a behavior system.
So the question just asked, so what does the social element look like? I am so happy that you asked that question. I can give you a specific example of how my kids were able to interact with each other. And so we would have different activities or different assignments that the students had to complete. And then as part of their center rotations, if you're younger, I'm pretty sure you're still doing some sort of centers or daily 5 or something, cafe, whatever it is that you have chosen to do. But I always make sure that my students comment on what other students have done. And we talk about how it has to be positive, how or we talk about how you give someone a constructive criticism. So you can give that, and you can use emojis, you can use your voice, you can even type something. And I don't know if you guys have done the virtual stickers, but you can even create virtual stickers to add to your students' work. So the kids are able to talk back and forth. I would have students who would go into their we didn't talk about this yet, but the recording studio, and they would go in and they would comment on another friend's work, and then they would come out. And so it's really social. You have it in your settings where either you allow students to have that communication back and forth, or you can turn it off. I've been able to have it on, and I haven't had one bad thing to say. As a teacher, you can also set it so that you can look at everything before it goes directly out. So if a student ever did anything that wasn't kosher, you could always delete it and have a private conversation with that student.
Yeah. And so Sharon's wondering if you can talk about the virtual stickers.
Yeah, so the virtual stickers, you can go online and you can say, how do I get virtual stickers for Seesaw? And there are so many that are free. Don't worry about going on Teachers Pay Teachers and buying any. They also have some virtual stickers. And what you end up doing, if you are on, if you use Seesaw, once you're in Seesaw, you go to their activity, and then you go to those three little dot, and you can edit whatever their post is, and then that's when you bring it in. You put it, I think you import it as an image, or yeah, I think you import image, and it just goes in that way. It's so much fun. The kids, I mean,
try that out.
They have all kinds of, you know, funny faces and monsters and fairies and all that kind of stuff. You know how kids are for stickers. So it's a nice, you know, every once in a while thing to do.
I love that idea. So here for our non-LMS, if you don't have like a Schoology option, Symbaloo is a great program where you can house all the websites for students right on a Symbaloo. And let me just click on, oops, whoa.
I think you went on, yeah, there it is.
I went on my, yes, here we go. So this video I'm gonna pause it for you just so you can see how a Symbaloo will look. Each one of these little icons is where students will just click on. If they wanna go to Pedagogy, they'll click on that green Pedagogy monster. If they want to go to Brain Pop, they use that icon. Epic. You do have to build it, but the best part is you can customize it however you want. And I actually have a couple colleagues who have their school Symbaloos and their personal Symbaloos, which I think is awesome because they've got their DTE bill, and they've got their cable bill, and they've got their mortgage and everything else on their home, their personal Symbaloo. So you can have it for your school, and if you are if you're organized like that, you can have your own personal Symbaloo too. And then here's an example of a Weebly site. You've seen some screenshots earlier where you could have it accessible for families all through Weebly or Wix, or however, what website you want to create as well.
The main thing that you want to do is give your parents a one-stop shop as often as possible, because just like that picture that you saw when the dad was like, the what, you just want to make it as easy for them as possible. Remember, we're building up their tech literacy, and if we do it right the first time, they won't be so hesitant and reluctant to continue on with it. And so we really want to give them that great foundation, just like we want to give them the great foundation for being a student. And so we want to do the same with our EdTech.
And then let me click on this really quick. Ellen was talking about the learning path. Symbaloo just added these learning paths over the summer. And so you're able to start your own learning path here, but it restricts what students are able to do. So you can see in this image, they have to go from one to another before they just can't skip around. So it's kind of like a step-by-step. They can move their little sorry piece once they finish one part and move to the next. So it's a pretty handy way of really keeping kids where you want them, and giving them those step-by-step directions if you're not with them. Sorry, Leslie. What?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you are at all worried about screen time, you can also set limits and let your parents know. So I know for me, I always try to go by that 15 rule, especially for younger kids. Anything over 15 minutes probably isn't going to be educational any longer, and it probably isn't going to be learning any longer. So I always give my parents that hard stop at 15. Even if the kids beg for it more, I say, no, we have to stop at 15 minutes because we want them to, we want it to be something that is educational and not just fun and brainless. So yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's a good point for mini lessons and everything else as we navigate this hybrid and ever-changing world. So here's just a hilarious thing. I've just been doing it basically every single staff meeting. I'm that ridiculous millennial that just puts the filters on all the time. As you can see my mustache right now, but my 7-year-olds are just loving it. So you go into that stop video, next to it the caret, and then you click on choose video filter. You need to make sure you have the most up-to-date Zoom account. And then there's so many filters on there. There's a plant and a rainbow face and a pizza hat, and they think it's just so funny. They say this one's the artist filter, the bunny. There's so many filters out there, and using this and silly voices in morning meeting is just an easy way to engage students in the lowest stake way possible. You don't need to prep anything. You just need to slap a couple silly filters on yourself and you're golden. So I just wanted to point this out because it's my students have been absolutely loving it, and I am quite happy that my district disabled the filters for everyone else. So all they get to do is just watch me put silly filters on, and they're loving it.
All right, so the question in the chat is, can we spend a minute talking about online student privacy tip for our youngest learners? So I would definitely say restrict the accessibility to parents or caretakers. I wouldn't make it anyone with a link or anyone can get to it. I would make sure that I had certain email addresses that needed to be accounted for in order to get onto whatever learning, whatever either learning management system or whatever platform that I'm using. I would always make sure that it's, you know, families only. And then I would teach the students how they only go on to sites sites that we have already pre-approved. And I know we're going to talk about it, I think in a slide, maybe the next slide, about the safe sharing for
one of the next slides. Yeah,
we're going to talk about that soon, how you can make sure that you don't get any pop-ups or any of those weird videos that have to buffer before your students can look at what it is that you want them to see. You also want to have conversations with them about making sure that they don't put any of their likenesses. And since they're the younger kids, I guess they probably wouldn't know how to do it. They would need someone a little bit older than them to show them, but make sure that they don't put their likeness out for the world to see. Yep. They're still young, and so, you know, they can put something funny, or they can put a celebrity, or they could put their favorite, you know, thing on their profile, but they don't want to have anything that is identifiable that someone could identify them, you know, off in the streets. And so you just want to think about that. And then you just want them always only sharing things with the people in their classroom, and not doing anything with anyone that is a stranger. So if it's not someone that you recognize as your classmate, then you ignore.
Yes, thanks, Leslie. So here's just this is part of my Bitmoji classroom. I was one of those educators that created a Bitmoji classroom, but this is a slide of a bunch of virtual manipulatives. So each of these images my students could click on, and they're able to bring up the virtual manipulatives. So let me show you my Bitmoji classroom. And there are 2 really good sites on Facebook. If you're a Facebook person, there's Bitmoji Classroom, Bitmoji Crazed Educators, and Inclusive Bitmoji Classrooms on Facebook. So here is just my intro slide. All of these math manipulatives students could click on if they want to get dice, if they want to get an interactive clock. All of these read alouds are able to be clickable, and students can listen to the books being read to them aloud. And all of these math manipulatives are clickable as well. So if students want to use a 10 frame, they just click on that 10 frame and it brings them, and they're able to use these tools. So this might be something that you want to share with students, or it might be something that you just want to keep handy, as I know I didn't want to bring home all my manipulatives. And so instead, I'm going to use some of these the online manipulatives instead. Like I might not have money lying around and now I can use online money manipulatives instead. So
did you just do a search to find all of those, or what did you
yeah, so they're all from these top 5 sites, Math Playground and Toy Theater, and we'll make sure to put this in the chat, my Bitmoji classroom, but feel free to make a copy of this virtual manipulatives, and then the rest, the Bitmoji classrooms, I've been copying and editing from the Facebook groups that I've joined. And educators are so kind right now, being willing to share. I always say to people, this year is the year to beg, borrow, collaborate, and steal from others. So the Facebook groups are Bitmoji Crazed Educators and Inclusive Bitmoji Classrooms. All right. Oh.
And just to let you know, you will go down a rabbit hole trying to make your Bitmoji classroom what you want. I mean, you can really spend hours. It's really like decorating, but it's so much fun. And once you do it, you're really excited about it. So
do it on a day you've got more time on your hands, because I spent too much time adding the plants I wanted and the salt lamp. Why? I don't know. I just wanted to, right? So quickly, because we've only got a few minutes left.
Oh, okay.
Keyboard literacy. There's just some ideas on how to practice. If you don't have like a typing club or another typing program, you could print out the QWERTY keyboard. Yeah, the keypad, and you could have students practice their sight words. Maybe you have a broken keyboard that you can actually have students use. Put it on the back of their name tags, have them practice it during different centers. You could project, if you're virtual, you could project a keyboard and have them magically type it. Ellen gave me that idea, like their magic fingers. They don't want to touch the screen, but they could just practice typing up there. So those are just some ideas to practice keyboard literacy, since we know typing's so important for our kids moving forward.
All right, and then just these are some more management tips. If you always have like a listening station set up, you might want to find a multi-jack for multiple listeners, and so that you can find at Lakeshore, or you can find splitters as well. So all of those things you can put in place so that you can have that collaboration. I'm not exactly sure if kids are going to be able to be together in a listening center at this time, but in the future, that would be something that you would want to do. And then you wanted to talk about ViewPure, because go ahead.
So ViewPure is what I'm using for all my Bitmoji classroom links right now, because I used to use Safe YouTube on all of my YouTube videos, but recently this summer and last week it was hacked and took students to some rated R videos. Luckily, I did not have this happen to me personally. So if you're using Safe YouTube right now, I would make sure to check it out so your students are not going to some inappropriate sites. But instead, I've used ViewPure, which are recordings of teachers reading books beautifully, and it's another workaround instead of Save YouTube. Quickly, we've got KidRex and Britannica, which are awesome Google sites which students can use. Like I've done different research projects where I don't want to have them just Google everything, so those are different kid-friendly sites.
And then I think we were going to talk about how if you need to differentiate for students and allow them to voice text on that.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, so that's also a tool that you can use. Sometimes students have a lot to say, however, they can't get those fingers working, or they cannot put from, you know, from pencil to paper. And so we always want to make sure that we give them every available option. And so voice typing is also a very good tool. I know we had some students in our upper L actually who couldn't get that much on the paper because just of graphomotor issues. And one of the older upper L, not older, but the upper L teachers came and said, what could we do? And I said voice typing, and it turned out that they were able to get much more on the paper. Okay, I think we are like 1 minute.
And it's perfect because here's the exit ticket slide.
Here's the exit ticket. I wanted to say a couple of things. First, thank you all so very much. We really appreciate your time and knowledge. There'd been some discussion in the chat, and this has come up in previous webinars. So the NEA is not necessarily advocating or recommending or endorsing any of these products. These are all recommendations from members and teachers in the field who are using these in various classrooms. And just to underscore, it's been said a couple of times, you should be using the technology that is, the technology that is required within your district, the LMS or whatever it is. And then CPD credits. If you need continuing professional development credits, it's been up here a lot. We will have the recording and directions available in the next couple of days. You should go to www.nea.org/webinars. And then we do have the exit ticket here, and I'm going to pass it to my colleague Christine to wrap us up in her little French beret.
You like that?
I love it. Look at that filter usage.
I know. I was like, look what I learned tonight. To use the filter. So excited. So I just really, I mean, and you already thanked them, but Kelsey and Leslie, amazing. So much information in so little time. My little notebook has stuff written all over it, along with a lot of great ideas coming through the chat as well. This is what makes these great, right? And so Ann talked about, you know, NEA is not endorsing, but it's better to hear it from people who are practitioners in the trade, who are using these every day, who really have got their hands dirty, figuring out the ins and outs and the best about it and what's not good about it. For example, everybody talks about safe YouTube, but we just learned today that maybe it's not that safe. So we learned about an alternative view here, which I'm going to go Google right after I leave here. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. And 3 takeaways I thought about giving ourselves grace as we learn to navigate this new environment, and not even just the new, because there were a lot of good tips for when we get to some semblance of regular back and face-to-face teaching. A lot of these things can happen within the classroom as well. But the slow rollout I thought was so important. You don't have to try to rush and do all of these at once. It's going to be better to do it slowly and get the kids get really well versed in it. You talked about them, you know, having time to kind of play with it so they can get comfortable and get some of that antsiness out of them. And, you know, remove barriers, which that's for the students and for ourselves. And the biggest thing I thought that was so important, and you can tell from the chat that this is not the group that's going to do it, but don't give up. Things are not going to be smooth and easy. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be messy, but don't give up. Rely on your friends. Rely on your colleagues. Come visit us again. I know we're going to have some more amazing presentations. I try to be as many of them as I can, because I'm actually not teaching early childhood this year. I started off in early childhood. I'm all the way up in high school. But a lot of this I'm going to be able to use. So I'm super psyched. And so I know you will be able to do so as well. Thank you so much. And please definitely take the time out to do the feedback form, because we really are learning from you on trying to deliver information and materials that you need to just do this right.
Thank you so much, Christine. Everyone, have a great evening. If you have questions that did not get answered, we'll stay on for a few minutes to engage in that dialogue. Otherwise, hopefully we'll see you in one of the subsequent weeks.
Au revoir.
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate not only the hosts having us, but everyone taking their, Monday evenings during one of the first few weeks of school probably. So we appreciate you all coming to learn and collaborate with Leslie and I?
It's hard because everyone is muted. It's easier. I know people have hands raised. It would be easier if you write your question in the chat or in the Q&A, and then we'll have Kelsey and Leslie go ahead and answer them from there.
And someone wants to know the link. I don't think the link's posted yet, right?
It will be at www.nea.org/webinars. And then that will take you to directions of how to do all kinds of things. You'll have to scroll to the bottom because all the recordings are on the bottom.
So stay tuned. It will be posted.
Give us at least 2 days.
Also, it's still just, wrapping up the recording.
Right.
All right, let's see what we got. That was one. Any tips for a garden teacher?
Kindergarten?
That's what I'm hoping.
Okay, so all of these tips were for kindergarten, actually. I am a kindergarten teacher. Everything that I talked about was for kindergarten. Every single thing that we talked about is very much applicable and ready.
Oh, gardening hands-on.
Oh,
Never mind.
Got it.
Not know. But you know what? We have some awesome, maybe one of our Ann Arbor peeps can put.
PLCW?
I was thinking Dave Siegel. Maybe we can put
yeah.
his contact information in the chat. Some of my Ann Arbor people, because he is an awesome resource for anything environmental.
Yeah.
He's an environmental teacher in Ann Arbor. All right, let's see what else. Exit link not responding.
You have to click on, it's not going to be live in the PowerPoint. It would have to be clicked on in the chat or copied and pasted from the PowerPoint to the place where you put the URL. Search engine, whatever it is.
And thanks, Anne Marie, for, yes, I will share the math manipulatives with you right now.
And those will also be in that presentation, which you can download. That will also be at the NEA.org address that we mentioned. So all of that will be there, and you can get it. But you could get the presentation now. They've given you the presentation a couple of times.
All right.
It says about the certification. I think the link was posted in the chat. If we could post the link in the chat about the certification. I think you posted that, Ann.
Yeah, it's not certification. It would give you a certificate that, depending on your state guidelines and rules, you can turn in potentially for continuing professional development credit. And that will be at the same URL, www.nea.org/webinars. So, all right. It seems like we're dying down here. So I think that we all should say goodbye.
Great. Thank you again.